Good to go, Lynn.
All right, good evening, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Leaders,
Here.
Larson,
Here.
and then Justin.
Here.
So Justin Schultz by phone.
Okay. Everybody had a chance to read the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes or make any corrections?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right. So first off, I'll read the public statement. The public hearings will be conducted pursuant to the Commission's rules of procedure. We will first hear the report of the planning director on the detailed information and observations regarding the request before the Commission, if not done so in written form prior to the hearing. Next, we will take the testimony of the applicant and his or her witnesses. Upon completion of the applicant's testimony, I will call upon members of the audience wishing to be heard concerning the request. Persons in favor of the request shall be heard first, followed by those opposed to it. At any time during the presentation of testimony, the members of the Commission may interrupt to ask questions or make comments on what has been said. Upon completion of all testimony, the applicant will be allowed to make a closing statement to the Commission. Upon completion of the applicant's closing statement, I will entertain a motion from the Commission to close the public hearing on the request. The Commission reserves the right to ask questions of any member of the audience. However, we will not hear any unsolicited statements unless the public hearing is first reopened. Each speaker addressing the Commission shall step forward to the podium, state your name and address before proceeding with the testimony or evidence. This Commission shall not be bound by strict rules of evidence, but does reserve the right to exclude evidence or testimony that it may deem to be irrelevant, immaterial, incompetent, or unduly repetitious. As chairman, I will rule on all questions relating to the admissibility of evidence, which may be overruled by a majority of the Commission. Continuances may be granted by the Commission in the case for good cause shown to any interested party who has entered their appearance. The Commission may request the continuance of a hearing for the purpose of giving further notice, taking further evidence, gathering further information, touring the proposed site, or for such reasons as the Commission may find sufficient. In such case, we shall state the specific reason for the continuance and set a date, time, and place when the matter will be continued. All official actions of the Commission will be made at a public meeting by motion made, seconded, and a polling of the membership. If conditions are imposed, such conditions shall be included in the motion or amended thereto. Our final decision will be prepared in writing and will be part of the public record of the Commission. All right. Do I have a motion to open public hearing?
I make a motion to open public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to open public hearing for case number sub 2023-01. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right, the public hearing is open. And so Matt, do you want to go? It says here you're supposed to go first, or do we want to have the applicant
We
first?
can have the applicant come up.
Okay, so we'll have the applicant come forward. Please state your name and address.
Sure, good evening. My name is Greg Prady with Eagle Engineering Group, 12100 West Center Road, Omaha, Nebraska. Here on behalf of Bob and Janie Mings, who are the owners of the property and applicant of this proposed development. So good evening, glad to be here.
Good evening.
Excuse me. Tonight we have a preliminary plat before you, which is 27 lots basically. We have looked at this in two different phases. The west half of the property would be approximately 12 lots, about 29 acres, and the east 38 acres would be phase 2, which would be another 15 lots. This is going to basically be a continuation of Stony Brook that is directly adjacent to the west. Bob did that subdivision about 20 years ago. The only caveat or difference from that one was he basically built all those houses in that development. This one, he will potentially build a few and or just sell the lots as market rate would dictate that, but not have a builder attachment to that as well. So the houses then would be similar size, the 2 acre nominal lots. The largest one I think we have is in the range of like 3.5 acres roughly size wise. So they're pretty somewhat uniform here throughout the entire layout. And then again, the house values would be somewhere in the range of $550,000 to $800,000 in today's market. So the time frame that the applicant has directed us on is grading potentially here this fall, right after the crops are done. If the weather is conducive, we would continue with public improvements, which primarily would be some minor storm sewer improvements, and then really street paving improvements would be the main focus here on phase 1. Right now, we would only look for, we'd request approval tonight of the final plat, or excuse me, preliminary plat for both phases, but when we would get to a point on the final plat, that would only be for phase 1 on the western 12 lots. And then if, jumping back to the schedule, if the weather isn't conducive, we would shift that and complete that public paving project in the spring. And that would of course be either weather dependent or contractor dependent, which would be 2 of the drivers. And then electric, gas, and any telephone communications, all those installations would happen in the spring or early summer. So this project would utilize private well and septics on site, similar to the adjacent development, and also private well and septic. I said them both at the same time, sorry. And then of course, according to the DNR's regulations, we have the set aside second area for the backup septic tank leach fields. So
Do you have a quarter for the wells and the septics all laid out already?
we have done the preliminary one. It needs to be a little tweaked up based on our final grading plans and stuff, since they don't like those to be infill and such. So, but we do have them schematically all located where we can make them work right now. So,
Okay.
Stormwater discharge then would be the next topic of this development. Basically, the phase 1 has 3 historic discharge locations that the drainage would be conveyed to and then released from. And then phase 2 really just has 1 stormwater discharge that would go towards Highway 92 to the south. Kind of going back to the overall layout, there was no access to Highway 92 per the Iowa DOT, so that was really what's dictating our alignments and proposed layout here, that we don't have any direct access to Highway 92. And then the topography from the east to west side is, I believe, about 60, 70 feet difference, which is conducive for us to connect the street from east to west. And so that's what kind of this proposed layout included 4 cul-de-sacs. So that all of the drainage then would be conveyed to those historic locations and not increased per Iowa code. No post-construction or stormwater management was being proposed on this because the runoff from the site would actually show a decrease from existing conditions right now with the crop fields and contour terrace conditions, to where we'd have a lot more grass vegetation with front lawns and native grasses there that would retain more water than what we are seeing right now on the site. And as part of the project, then a stormwater pollution prevention plan would be implemented for the proposed site. Like I said, the street paving then will be our final piece of construction, and we have met with Mr. John Rasmussen on site a couple times and talked through his comments. We had actually started this process probably a couple months ago, so we have his comments all addressed, and I think the only one that was really outstanding was 230th Street, and we understand that would be a requirement as part of the phase 2 development, that any paving or the paving for 230th would be part of the phase 2 project, since phase 1 is only accessing the Stony Brook side to the west.
So you'll turn that into a concrete road versus a bituminous road?
Well, John's comment was it has to be paved. He didn't say if it was concrete or asphalt. We basically just said we would agree to pave it or improve it as part of the phase 2 project when that would access those lots.
But the current setup is
It's rock.
bituminous, they call it bituminous, so that's
I think it's gravel.
I think it's gravel.
Yeah.
230th is gravel.
no,
Well,
I take it all the time in my house.
South, it's bituminous, right?
No, it's that too, it's north is bituminous, it's pea gravel and tar.
Sure.
So that's
Oh,
very
okay.
thin layer.
Super.
So my question to you is, or just in general, are you gonna redo that same type of material or swap it out for a thicker material?
I'd say I'd ask that we talk to John Rasmussen and get a concurrence there. on what
Major
he-
subdivisions.
Major subdivisions have to be on pavement.
Okay. Not a,
Bituminous doesn't.
okay, so
work.
that swaps it out.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay,
It has to either be pulled up concrete or asphalt.
okay.
So yeah, but again, 230th Street would be part of the phase 2 boundary is what we're saying here tonight, so. Then again, financing would be kind of the last topic I had made my notes here, that, the grading and stuff, grading and improvements, those are gonna be privately financed, and then the applicant has reached agreement, I believe, with the county on how there's some cost share contributions towards the improvements, public improvements of the project, so. That's kind of the 5-6 topics I had made some notes on. You guys have any questions for you, I'd be happy to answer them, and then, I guess, talking with Mr. White here, that at the end, if there's some questions, I'll be happy to get up and answer those at the end too.
When you have covenants here, are those in line with the current covenants for the older part of Stony Brook?
I believe so, correct, yes. Yep.
Do you know when the older covenants expire on Stony Brook, the first phase?
I do not. I know it was basically 2004 timeframe, the last phase of Stony Brook went in, so.
Is there a Matt, do you know, Matt, if there's like a,
I don't, because we don't manage anything with the covenants.
what, say that part again?
Our office doesn't manage anything with the covenants.
I know when they expire, then each person has to agree to it to renew that covenants, and if one person holds out, then it's dead. So, that's all I have.
Sure.
Justin, you got anything? Any questions for this gentleman?
No, Bob actually came to the board, years ago and kind of pitched this to us back, must have been 2017, probably 2018, and seemed like a great thing. So it's exciting to kind of see this moving forward a little bit further. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, I don't think I have anything. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and the applicant himself is not here, so do we have anybody that would like to come forward and speak in favor? Please come up to the podium, state your name and address, please.
Hello,
Thank you.
my name is Travis Kozad, and I live at 22212 Pebblestone Drive, which is in actually the first division of
phase.
Stony Brook. And I'm 99% sure if this helps at all, the first phase of covenants expire at the end of this year.
Also, so,
So that was 25 years is what they were originally for, and I think there were different covenants for the new phases as he grew that neighborhood.
It's hard to believe it's been 25 years.
Yes, I agree with that.
Wow.
So I'm here in favor of it. I again live in the Stony Brook neighborhood just to the west of it, in phase 1, and I see where there would be no issues for me personally. I am in extreme favor of it because I'm interested in a potential lot. Bob has actually built us 2 homes in the past. We built once in the Pheasant Hills neighborhood in '90, and then we built in 2000 in Stony Brook. We were house 6 in Stony Brook. And both of our experiences were great, A+ experiences. I mean, I've always had a good rapport, and if there were differences, he was workable with it. The thing that I liked was watching the 2 divisions grow was he maintained the lots for the most part while the homes were being built to finish building the neighborhood. So it wasn't where it became weedy and destroyed for everybody. So basically, that's what I'm here for, is I'm hoping that you'll, vote yes for this and let it go forward, because I'm sure excited for it, so thank you
Okay.
for your time.
And do you think the covenant, have you seen a copy of the new covenants?
Not of the new ones, I
Okay.
have not.
Okay.
I have not, no. The current ones are like 2.5 pages, and I think it was pretty generic of what they were in Pheasant Hills and also in Stony Brook were pretty much ditto from what that I had in writing, so.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Justin, you got any questions for this gentleman?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right. Anybody else in favor? Anybody else want to speak in favor? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Mark Tramer, Tramer. I live at 15198 Stonegate Lane. I'm here with my wife Inger. And let's see, where do I start? I grew up on Highway 92. My dad moved there, my parents moved there in 1971, about a half mile from where this development would be. I watched firsthand the benefits. My dad worked for MUD for 40 some years. I watched the firsthand benefits of him bringing in his coworkers from Omaha to a part of Council Bluffs they'd never seen before. You know, everybody had an image of what Council Bluffs was, and to come out there, it was great. I roofed houses and worked on houses in Pheasant Hills, so I got to see as a kid the firsthand value of having a housing development come up and bring in new kids to the school, new life to the school. That was great. And then 10 plus years ago, my wife and I built in Stony Brook, and we've lived there ever since, and now raised my kids K through 12 there, had our first one graduate from high school. So the benefits of Stony Brook in itself for our family, and getting to be in a quality neighborhood like that in Council Bluffs, in Lewis Township, is fantastic. And it's something I've benefited from my entire life. And now we're gonna probably look to compete with that fine man for a lot over there at the new development at some point. We're excited about that. I think it's the lifeblood to the Lewis Central School District. I think it'll help out. I don't plan on moving, so it'll help out with my taxes to have that many beautiful places. And you know, to be honest with you, I don't care if you go Omaha or wherever, if they're not gonna be built there, you're gonna have to go somewhere else. And there's just not lots like that. You're not gonna have a quality of a development like that. So we couldn't be more excited, and hope you guys sign off on it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else in favor? All right, anybody want to speak opposed? Come on up to the podium, please.
My name's Robert Hemmingson at 22499 Greenview Road. We've been there for over 25 years. I'm with my wife Cheryl. I'm not up here opposed, I'm neutral on this. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that there's some complaints that were made during the building of the first several ones that he didn't follow his PP plan as prescribed. He was supposed to bring it out. Even the county planner even filed a complaint against him for not following his plan.
And this was back in 25 years ago when he did phase
Well, I
one?
don't know if it's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, because I've seen him up to 4 phases.
Sure.
So, up on phase 1, I know she complained, K-Boca. The state came in, and at that point, they were looking for compliance and not fining, and he was to police himself. And so I'm inquiring on who's gonna police him. You know, because the plan has these, pollution control plans, which our land suffered greatly from.
Yep. And I think Matt can probably
Yeah, this
answer
was
best.
probably, Kay, before she retired, this was probably one of the driving factors that she had. So we do have grading and excavation ordinances now. We do have trained inspectors on staff now. So that goes through the county process. It's a lot quicker. Everybody is, we're available to go out there and, you know, if they have silt fences that are running over, that have to be cleaned out,
Yes.
we can get that on. We can get that done a lot faster through county enforcement than trying to wait for the state to come down and get those things handled. So we do feel like it has become a much better process as far as compliance wise. From our contractors and our developers in our area now knowing, just once they found out, you know, the codes were adopted and the inspectors were on staff, then they're like, okay, this is, I mean, we've kept up on it pretty well.
All right, thank you.
Do you recall when those went into effect, Matt?
2015, right at the end, it was almost 2016, when we did
Right after
we did the major update to the zoning ordinance and, building codes, land use plan, it all happened right at that 2015, 2016 year.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's, like, on this site, we already know, I mean, like, no dirt's gonna be leaving the site, because it's all water, it's separate. Yeah, I know what you mean, but, you know, making sure that they have the retention basin formed and cleaned out when it needs to be. And that's what we'll be able to manage a lot easier through our office now, because we have the codes to back it up. Previous, we did not have any actual county ordinances towards grading and excavating, so
The
it's
state
just.
did, but they didn't enforce. So.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else, sir?
Second issue is, I have occasionally get my water well checked, and it's very high on nitrates. It always has been. And so this looks like this will also contribute to keeping those nitrates high, plus other pollutants that are in those water systems. within the last 20 years, we have seen a tremendous amount of glycerol in the systems, and also some unknown things that are making my filters completely black.
What does glycerol come from? I guess I'm not.
I don't know. It's just
Well,
what told
yeah,
us that it's that
I'm not up on that,
pink,
so.
bluey, gooey stuff that's coming out, even through salted water.
Okay.
So normally they would say that comes through probably could be a farm, insecticides, pesticides, and or septic tanks. I do know that I did observe a couple times when Mr. Mings was producing that he had several diesel tanks that above ground that blown over. So he was responsible for also containing that also. So.
Well, I would think that, yeah, I mean, for nitrates and stuff like that, I know a lot of that comes from farming. So I would think that a subdivision would have less of that than a farm would.
Well,
I don't know,
yeah,
but.
I'm just inquiring to see if the county looked into it or took and asked the state about that, because we're a little bit different and unusual than our friends across the river. They have a completely different set of how they look at it. But I have noticed that it keeps going up and up and up. But the only concern that there has been is that they're worried about, the high nitrates for children or babies, because they get the blue baby syndrome from having too much nitrates. They don't really have from my last checking on it, there's not really been a study done on the nitrates.
What's your thoughts on that?
But I'm coming up and just my own observations.
Yeah.
I have noticed over the past decades of it changing. I used to be able to just go with not changing my filters for quite some time, and now it's 4 times a year.
So is that a county thing or a state EPA water?
We do run the Grants to Counties program through our office. It offers free water testing once a year to everybody, and then if they find something, then there could be multiple tests done on there. Recently they've added in arsenic testing because they found like a lot of our rural wells in our area have low levels of arsenic in them. So I do encourage everybody who's on a well, I mean, if you're drinking that water, you should have it tested regularly. Once we got the arsenic tests back, I quit drinking my own well water because of the arsenic in there, and it can cause, Parkinson's-like things.
What about mitigation for state? So if it does have that, then you just test it.
Well, these wells in this area will be new wells, so there's nothing really that you can mitigate because they're supposed to be fully grouted top to bottom to help from that contamination getting down in there. But if you have like if intrusion happens or you have a total chloroform bacteria test come back up high, they can help with shocking the well and making sure that then you can retest it and figure out if you have safe drinking water or not. And they keep increasing that funding. That's kind of the state's reaction to it is, normally that would be a $20,000 grant that we get from the state to operate. This last year, it had creeped up to about 30,000. Last year, they jumped it to 50,000. It's at 50,000 again this year to help close a number of the old wells and cisterns to try to cease as many of the contamination points as we can get. There's been recent news stories about the quality of drinking water in our state, and
But the new
we're worst
wells
in the nation right now.
shouldn't have an issue.
A new well constructed to standards should be fully grouted all the way up and sealed to where, if the groundwater is already contained, you're going to get what's already in the groundwater.
Right.
You're just not going to contaminate it further. So
Right.
give it a conduit for bad stuff to get down.
Yeah.
Yep.
You don't want to
Anything
fast track
else?
it.
That water thing to me is getting to be quite an issue, is because not only if that becomes a bigger issue, then where are you gonna get your water from?
Right.
You're gonna have to bring your own water in, the house values are gonna depreciate or not be as attractive as people that have the ability to get city water. So I don't know, when I built my home, I checked in with the city, and the city says, we'll bring water to anywhere. If you want to pay for it, come out to you, we will. So I'm just wondering
Right
if
to
that's a
check.
consideration of just bringing septic and or city water out there. Don't we take city water now and send it down to Glenwood or?
It was looked at on this project. That was one of the original, when Justin mentioned that Bob had come in 2017, it was looked at to run a water line out there. at that time, it wasn't feasible. The city was okay with it. They said, yeah, we'll run a water line out there. The city has since changed their mind, so we do not want water in that area until we get our sewer in that area. But there is a water line that's gonna come down from the north and is gonna supply a housing subdivision down off of Pioneer Trail that that would be large enough to supply all of those subdivisions through there.
What I'd encourage the council to take a look at those water issues closely, and maybe look to make sure that there's maybe investigate it further in the future to see if there's anything else in Iowa that has experienced some graduation from healthy water in building such big homes. So that's all I have.
Okay,
Question?
thank you.
That's good, thank you.
Thank you.
Opposed? Anybody else opposed? Come on up, sir.
My name is Fred Hill. I live on 230th Street, the one that was in question.
Can you give us your exact address, please?
It's 15334 230th Street.
Okay, thank you.
Is that right on the corner where you, 92?
No, it's about
Towards the
halfway
end?
up toward
Okay.
Greenville.
Gotcha.
But my
Okay.
property does adjoin the development.
Okay,
Um,
yep, gotcha.
Dealing with your one question that you had about the condition or the type of road surface, I've lived there since 1978.
Mhm.
So it's basically always been gravel up until recently. It's a chip granite oil type surface now. Much appreciated. Anyway, when the question came up about concrete surface on the road, I guess one question I had is to what extent? Is that just to the entrance of the addition, or is that the entire road coming through there?
It'd be the entrance of the.
Up to the entrance, okay.
I'm sure certain ways past for
Okay.
runoff, but.
I brought something that,
Yeah, hey, just to talk to that a little bit, you're probably not gonna notice much difference from what you have currently. I mean, even though they're gonna upgrade that road, it's gotta be like an 8-inch base they put in, and then they seal coat it right over the top. So it'll be the same kind of surface. It's just up until the entry point, it'll just be a little bit thicker. So
Okay.
you won't notice a whole lot of
we
difference.
won't notice it, okay.
Thanks, Justin.
I had a question, they mentioned storm drainage. Like I say, I've lived there for a long time, 45 years. I've brought some pictures along, just I would share, visual sometimes is better.
Mhm.
Shows the volume of water that can flow through behind my property, or in through my property, coming from north, east, and west, and then moving south. And there's a pretty good volume of water that comes through there. Most recently, here in, whatever this picture is dated, keep dropping my pen, in 2021, Bob came in, there was a water drainage ditch that moved through that field, or in this development that he's gonna be building, that went down, fed into the one coming from the east, went down through a huge cement culvert under Highway 92 and out to a retention pond that was built south of 92. Anyway, in December of 21, he came in and filled that ditch in.
The retention pond? Or
The drainage ditch where all of this water goes.
so you filled it in with,
He filled it in as such, basically like it with a dam, earthen dam, and put I don't know if that's an 8-inch or a 10-inch or what type of drain tile that is. I'm not that familiar with them. So I have a little concern of how he's really treating the drainage issues potentially going forward with this addition. I have some concerns of the next really big rain that we have, what it's gonna do for us, as is. And then when you throw in the other taking terrace, I assume they're gonna remove terraces when they do the actual development, that the amount of water that's gonna come down, obviously they're dealing with it on that end, but they've kind of shut us off on our end. So I have a concern of how that's gonna affect us on the north side.
So you're concerned with drainage, how that,
It basically.
into your property?
Yeah,
and
our water
others.
has to go somewhere, and depending on terrain and buildups and what the plan is to handle this amount of water, because I'm not sure if some people really understand how much water really
Sure.
comes
And
down.
the picture you have there, where is that picture
I
taken
can
from?
show you if I can approach.
Yeah, bring them on up, please.
This is coming across the back of my property.
So this
Back
is
of
your
my
deck?
house,
Is
yeah.
this your house right here? On that?
No,
230?
I'm actually up here. I'm on this house.
Okay.
So that's coming through my property. Then as it exits, it flows down into the other property that you were showing.
On the river.
And then when you get to the other end of it, this is where it flows. So I think that's gonna be an issue, depending on the volume of rain. And that's why I was concerned about if he's going to increase this drainage from all directions.
So he's kinda like got a dam built up and it's backflowing into your yard.
It can, and I have laterals in that direction, and I'm a little concerned.
And then you're getting water from the north side,
We
outside.
have it coming from the north, from the east and the west, because it kind of flows into the valley there. So again, I think that's one of those questions that the drainage issue really needs to be addressed. I know there was some other issues in another development where they had some big
Sure.
drainage issues recently.
So,
Hey, Matt, this is not gonna be a curb and gutter neighborhood, correct? It's just paved, just like Stony Brook?
No, John wanted him to go with curb and gutter. So it will have curb and gutter in there, yep.
so
Yeah,
for,
we just don't wanna, that's pretty valid concern, especially considering like, Hills of Cedar Creek, what happened up there and,
That was where I was
that
referencing.
property off of State Orchard.
Mm-hmm.
and then you got a problem on the north as well as everything coming in. So you got
Yeah.
two problems, backup and then drainage from the north.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well,
how
they're
to
working against each other, from the standpoint of what was done. And if he's gonna open that back up and have some type of more substantial drainage that goes through there, what naturally existed before, for all the decades I lived out there.
Okay, I'm just trying to look on the map here.
So there's a storm drainage easement right here. Any thoughts, Matt?
No, I mean, that's kind of part of when they submit their grading plan, that's when we look through all those pieces of it, and they still have to get their permits and things from the state on stormwater drainage as well.
But there's always issues of unseen, like same issue in Colorado, big development. Hey, I got when it rains, I have a moat around my house and all the rock and all the crap goes in the, they said, well, that's how it's engineered. Well, re-engineer it.
Now, that was the reason I wanted to bring this
So-
to people's attention.
That's the question,
If it developed right, then this wouldn't be an issue. I
so
mean, this would be, but
it,
this wouldn't.
let's say we approve it and unseen, so what's the recourse to mitigate this issue? To redesign.
Is it okay if we can?
Well, that's the
You can
part with
keep
the
the
grading
plan.
plan is a living plan, right?
Okay.
So you get going on your grading plan and you have an event, obviously
That-
something's
that
not right with it,
concerns me.
then the plan can get reshaped to make sure that if we have to add more drainage in there, more drainage gets added in there. If it's too much, if it's pointed too much in one way, it gets reshaped back up the other. Silt basins, silt fences.
So my question is, they probably haven't considered that issue coming from the north to the south.
Well, that'd be a question for the engineer.
Right.
We can have him speak in a minute here.
Okay.
We can
But
have
yeah,
him
that's
come
my
back up,
concern
or
too,
if you
yeah.
wanna answer, if you have any.
I guess it'd be simpler, I think I'd just do them all at the end, if that's all right.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Take
Yep.
notes here, so.
Yeah, cause you're gonna, okay. Anything else, sir?
I just had one other thing, I guess, that when they were talking about the covenants, and I guess the multiple builders potentially, from a protection value of everybody's in this area's values, I guess, we're always concerned about the type of houses going in, what's the appearance of the houses, is there uniformity, is there What about outbuildings? What about businesses? You know, those kind of questions I think everybody would wanna know. And they talked about the covenants, but I don't know what that means. You know, I don't know that we saw what the actual covenants were, or if that's something that, only applies to the neighborhood being developed.
Yep, that's only neighborhood to be developed.
Okay.
And nothing with yours.
And then how it affects our values, of course, depending on how that works, I guess, but. Otherwise, I think that's pretty much my biggest issue or concern, I should say. It's not that I'm against the project, I just have a real concern about the drainage.
Yeah, I would too.
So,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill.
thank you.
They look like a pretty good set from what I've seen.
Any,
You can have those.
anybody else, speak, neutral or negative? Please come on up.
My name is Susan Quant, Quandt. My address is 22595 James Drive. I live in the Pheasant Hills addition. And I'm neutral. I'm at the very top of Pheasant Hills addition, so I don't have the drainage issues that other residents do. But I'd like to state that Jan Hughes is my sister-in-law.
Oh, down the bottom of the hill.
Yes, at the bottom of the hill. So I'm here to represent my neighbor who couldn't attend, Bob Olson. That's 2 houses away from me, and he is at the corner of the cul-de-sac, and his property butts up against their property.
I know right where he's at.
Yes, yes, so, the question that Bob wanted me to present, and, the engineer had said that there's gonna be 3 drainages on the west side, and then the 1 drainage on the other side, so, I think on the diagram, I don't think the drainage was indicated on there, but I'd like to know where the 3 drainage runoffs will be,
Okay,
and that's all I have.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else? Please, come up and state your name and address.
I am Cheryl Henningsen, and we are at 22499 Greenview Drive. I just wanted to refer back to what these other folks are saying about the drainage. It seems it always ends up on us, and there is no permanent retention pond that I am aware of, and I didn't know whether this plan was going to include one, because it just ends up eroding all of our stuff. We get all the chemicals, we get all kinds of silt, even though I think we've made some new strides about trying to contain that silt, but it just comes. I mean, we had so much silt from
that property, right?
Yeah.
On the south side of your
Exactly.
development, okay?
And so that's why we just had to be here, because
Sure.
it was just a terrible situation for us last time. And we didn't get anything resolved for it. And so I'm just afraid the water's gotta go somewhere, and it's probably gonna go to us.
So you
I'm
try to
assuming.
talk to that Ming?
Well, I
Or the
don't know
county?
aware of that. We talked to the county, we talked to Kay.
Okay, this is years ago then, I'm assuming.
Yes, it's years ago, but we had lawsuits.
Okay,
And so it's a big problem, because we just don't have anywhere for that water to be contained and directed. And if it's going to have that many more paved streets, it's going to be going faster at a higher pace, velocity. And of course, the law stated that it's not supposed to be able to be increased beyond what it was. And there's just no provision for it that we're familiar with. So we would really like to see something done about that in this proposal. But I mean, again,
yep, makes sense.
we have no problem with having neighbors. We have no problem with, things
Drainage,
going on. It's just, we're the low lying spot. and You can just stand, I mean, there's rivulets that
Been
are
there.
just way over your head. It's just crazy. So.
thanks.
I would
Thank you
like
very
to-
much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I think that is it. I would entertain a
You want
motion.
the applicant to do a closing statement?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
sorry,
sorry.
answer, address.
Yes.
I'm just gonna kind of skim through the notes here, so it'll be a little choppy here for you guys. The water wells, I think Matt kind of hit that pretty good. This really, we're under the requirements of the DNR for permitting and that such. And like he said, well, those will be completely grouted, as you would do on any new construction now. The stormwater pollution prevention plan, those requirements really have evolved in the last 20 years. I mean, I think right in the late 2000s, they have really taken a step up. So the next 10 years now since then, that they have state-wise, city-wise, county-wise have all increased their game, if you will, and there's more, like Matt said, there's more ordinances in place that everybody can find and such that has the people's attention, contractors and or developers. I'm actually on the city side on across the river on a few things that we threaten to levy potential fines that gets their attention and get these things resolved. So one thing to note though is the stormwater pollution prevention plan, like Matt actually noted, is that's a living document. It can be modified, it can be adapted for what's going on site to address concerns for any type of runoff during construction. Because unfortunately, we can always do a lot of things in 3D, but the fourth D of time is always a unknown factor of when we're going to do this throughout the year, and if we're going to be in a drought or if we're going to be in a rainy season like we have been the last 2 weeks here. So. Drainage then, I think kind of to Mr. Hill's point on phase 2, we have accounted for a significant portion of the offsite drainage from the north. Honestly, with this being a 2-phased project, we've worked on the plat from this standpoint, and then now we've really just honed in on the west half of the site on drainage, runoff, everything else contained to that. We've actually worked on drawings for that side for phase 2. The applicant doesn't really have a timeline on that, nor does have any financing control or mechanism in place to try to make that thing move forward. So there is no timeline on that, so we really haven't done anything else on that side, but we have looked at it globally from a drainage perspective, and that's included in our drainage study, which I think that just gets submitted to Mr. Rasmussen as part of the public improvement documents, is where we haven't submitted that yet because it wasn't part of the preliminary plat package, so, but we have drafted that document. So one question did come up on terraces. I should have addressed that. On the west half, lots 4 through 9, there are, I believe, 3 terraces on that site. That top of the hill basically is proposed to go down approximately a nominal 10 feet, roughly 6 to 10 feet in certain areas, but basically if you just want to say 10 feet for ease of numbers, that would remove the top terrace, but then Bob is intending to leave the lower 2 terraces in place on lots 4 through 9. The terraces on the west side that go to the northwest and the terraces that go to the southwest, those would all be modified and or removed as part of to meet the layout configuration. They just don't hit where the building envelopes would be proposed next to the streets. So, but as you go east, those lower 2 terraces would be maintained. Drainage then, I think there's a question that I made a note here about the 3 impact points. Phase 1 then, basically, I kind of think of this as a T roadway configuration. And then the historic drainage that I was talking about is 3 pods. There's a pod that goes to the northwest corner of the site, which would be on lot 10. There'd be a pod that goes to the southeast corner on lot 4 that ultimately goes across the highway 92 that really connects to phase 2 as it goes east down the hill of that 50 to 60 feet I was talking about. And then finally there is a quadrant on the southwest corner that would go towards highway 92. That would be the 3rd impact point that we've looked at for the drainage perspective here for phase 1. And I don't believe there's really any questions on phase 2 other than everything on phase 2 is going to highway 92 on the big culvert underneath the highway there. So let's see, drainage then. The only other concept really is working with Mr. Rasmussen on this is we have agreed to curb and gutter this. The upper portion of the road, Stone Ridge Lane, the north-south street, again, all this is going to be curb and gutter. But that'll have curb and gutter that will take it to the cul-de-sacs and actually release through a flume drainage apron into the historic way. And then what we're doing here then is doing unconnected impervious, which is low impact development. So that way we get the water from a channelized condition through grassed conditions to, one, you can have more filtration for water quality, and then also water quantity is that we get this water spread back out to a unconcentrated condition as it goes towards that historic impact point that I was talking about. So that's where we'll see a decrease of runoff from the standpoint of, yes, we are creating pavement that creates more runoff, but yet we are taking crops that don't infiltrate as much water and turning it into grass conditions that infiltrate more water, so. I guess that's the notes I took on the kind of the questions, so if you guys have anything else, or if I missed something, or if you want anybody else to clarify anything, I'd be happy to do so.
So the streets, they're gonna be typical concrete streets, they're,
2
okay.
feet thick.
Was it? Sorry.
Looks like 2 feet thick with a, right?
Eight-
Based on that.
8-inch thick, I believe, 7 or 8 inch, like I actually didn't bring that note sheet with me. I think it's just, the county just requires a 7-inch
Oh.
street thickness with 4 inches of aggregate base.
Okay, there you go.
It'll be a 4-inch rollover curb, which is an Iowa City standard curb section. So that way all of the driveways don't have to necessarily be ground when they build the driveways. And then create more of a uniform look.
Looks like the curb's 24 inches or something like that. That's what it
Oh,
is.
sure, there's a dimension of 24 inches on the curb section, sure. I know what you're looking at now.
So then by your calculations, by doing this, there should be less runoff than there is with a traditional crop?
Correct.
Okay.
And if they have an issue, they work with the county and you're a developer to fix it.
Okay.
We call it chasing dump trucks. That's pretty much what, we'll have days where it's nothing but the inspectors are out there chasing trucks, sweepers. I mean, even if they start pulling mud out on the road, we're out there.
Okay.
Making sure that things are cleaned up and put back in the appropriate fashion.
Do we have a hotline for that nowadays?
It feels like it.
Do they call it roads department?
No, they call our department. It's our inspectors that go out.
Okay.
Right.
There you go.
You know, if they have, they will, you know, the roads department will send them down to us and say, hey, if we had a silt fence that collapsed down and filled in a road ditch, then our inspectors go out there and make contact with people, get the contractors out. The contractors are responsible to clean the ditch back out, put the silt fence back up, get everything restored back to where,
What about tracking mud all over the road?
that's the same thing. I
Okay.
mean.
I
we
see
do
that a lot lately.
But, you know, then they argue a lot because they're like, well, the farmer right down there is tracking mud out on the
Yeah.
road, and it's like, well, it's farmer, and, you know, farmers rule Iowa, we're here for the developer, you're developing a piece of their farm ground, you're gonna have to follow different rules.
Okay.
I don't have any questions. Justin, you got any questions?
Yeah, no questions for me.
Okay.
You need a motion to close public hearing?
Yes.
I'll give that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. I would now ask for recommendation from Planning and Zoning Director.
Mr. Mings has met all of the requirements of chapter 9 for the subdivision. Worked with the county engineer's office. You can see we don't have any comments back from anybody on everything, so it'd be our recommendation to send forward a recommendation of approval to the board of supervisors.
Good.
Okay.
All
Make
right.
a recommendation.
I'm sorry?
I'll make a recommendation.
Okay.
So in the case of sub 202301 Ming Edition, to approve it as read.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make this known, and obviously the board of supervisors will probably have similar questions, but I mean, with regard to the drainage, I mean, this is absolutely important. We absolutely don't want to have happen what happened with, that addition that went off State Orchard years ago. So, I mean, I'm confident in kind of the new rules that have been in place with the county, so I'm hopeful that we won't see those things, but we definitely need to make sure that these residents are heard and that those concerns are addressed. And, hopefully you can repeat this back to Mr. Mings as well, but we just, we got to get this right and not have this get messed up here in 10, 15 years from now. So, other than that, that's all I got.
Brett?
I'm good.
Okay. I agree with pretty much what Justin said. I think, we just got to get it right. I think there's, you know, a lot of new ordinances and stuff in place now that, hopefully if there is an issue, it will be addressed immediately, so. All right, then I'd, ask for a roll call vote.
Larson,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Leaders.
Yes. Okay, motion passes, so it is, it'll be forwarded on to the Board of Supervisors
For final approval.
for final approval, yep.
I don't have any other business for the commission tonight.
Okay, and we have no other business. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.